Everyone, this is Dave, and I'd like to spend a little time going over one way the Common Core is being looked at in Maine. This video is going to take a little time, so I'm looking at probably 20 minutes or so. I'll try to be concise. Anyway, the Maine Cohort for Customized Learning is an organization that was started by a number of school districts in Maine a little over a year ago to look at a system of performance-based education. Things started with a group of educators from Alaska called RISC, or the Reinventing Schools Coalition, and these Maine educators, among them RSU 18, Hollowell Schools, Jackman, Sanford, Massabesic High School, and others, came up with this cohort as kind of a non-profit. You can take a look at their site. Anyway, they brought together a number of educators along with people from Marzano and Associates, the education research group, and took a look at the Common Core. I was one of those teachers. And we'll focus on language arts. The argument Marzano's people made was that it is impossible to teach all of the standards in the Common Core to a level where students are actually proficient. Their argument, an argument supported by key people at the State Department of Education, was that to keep everything in the Common Core and for Maine schools to just simply adopt that meant we would be adopting a checklist and really teaching a checklist like many of us did with the Maine learning results. So we came together, about 15 English teachers, K-12, maybe 20, and we were charged with taking the Common Core, finding out what the learning target or learning goal was for each of the standards, deciding if all of those standards needed to be taught, and essentially rewriting things. Let me show you the work. Okay, I'll provide a separate link to get to this work. It's in a program or a portal called Educate. And while I'm here, I also want to pull up my handy copy of the Common Core. Let's grab the standards really quick so I can show you something really fast. Okay, so we're going to go right down to a standard. Whoops, excuse me. Okay, so let's go to a grade 5 one. Whoops, not speaking and listening. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so a language standard. This is kindergarten conventions of language. Okay, the standard is demonstrate command of the conventions, print uppercase, use occurring nouns, etc. The argument Marzano's people made was that these are not learning targets. These are assessments. And in a way, they're correct. What this is asking a student to do is an assessment. The assessment is to demonstrate this command. The learning target is actually to know and understand the conventions of standard English, right? To understand when to use uppercase letters, to understand how to use frequently occurring nouns. It really goes all through the core. And Marzano's people had a point, I think, that really what we're looking at when we look at the Common Core is a list of assessments. Now, behind each of these assessments is an actual learning target, but these are assessments. Determine or clarify the meaning of unknown or multiple meaning words and phrases based on grade 4 reading and content. Okay? That's not so much something to know, but that's something to do. So, to figure this out, you've got to have that as your basic fundamental understanding. Here is Educate, and these are the standards. So you pick a content area, ELA, Hang on a quick second. Okay, and so make sure you can see what I'm seeing. This is kind of tricky to use because there's a bunch of different crazy sliders. But let's look at a writing stand. Let's look at plot development, okay? So you have this slider here that goes up and down, and these are the standards. This is essentially the Common Core, most of it, but broken up. All right, so you have foundations, phonics, reading, writing. Anyway, let's see if I can get back to where I was. Plot development. So this is, now we're broken up into levels. So we're talking about a horizontal level, not grades. But this is level 1. Now, a key part of understanding this is that level 1 does not mean kindergarten, and it doesn't even mean grade 1. Some of these level 1s might start in 6th grade, like well, let me find one. Well, here you go. Text structures and text features. This is level 1. And this is clearly not happening at kindergarten, correct? Understands the relationship between illustrations and text using appropriate qualitative and quantitative measures. I mean, that's just not happening then. Okay? So, the key is that you're looking at these not as grade levels, but as standards. And a child can only do level 2 if they have mastered level 1. Let me try to get back to the one I was looking at with you folks. So level 1, understand stories are made up of interconnected events which make up the whole using, now this will be tricky, we'll talk about this later, using appropriate qualitative and quantitative measures of text complexity. Let's skip the text complexity for a minute. This is not an assessment, right? But that is knowledge. That is what will a student know or be able to do at this level. Okay? Now, to look at that, you click this, and this is the learning target. And there it is. It's the scope. Okay? The scope is level 1. And there's a scoring guide. And level 3 is the proficiency level. This is where we want students. This is the standard. If they go beyond that, meaning they know more than what was taught, it's a level 4. You have to get away from thinking about grades, like, oh, this is an 85. It's not. This is the standard. This is what we want kids to know and do. Now, if they're just approaching that standard, they would know the beginning, middle, and end, and sequencing, and how that works. They need to know this to get to here. Okay? But this is the standard. And a 1, you know, they can get this content with a little help. Okay? You can't look at this as, this is an A, this is a B. That doesn't equate. Because really, a 3 is full satisfaction of the standard. The 4, we may not even want kids to be at a 4 level because there just may not be anything there. And that's one of the difficulties in talking about this, because we have a very different understanding of how this works. Alright? So anyway, as you can see, this is different from plot development in the Common Core. Right? Anyway, the standard moves along, so the next standard understands the plot beyond literal details, understands plot creates story meaning through problem and solutions. And now we start to get a little more complex. Understand how the plot is driven by conflict using appropriate text complexity. Understand how plot is shaped by various elements, and on. So we get up to level 7 here. And this is the maximum level for plot. Remember, it does not mean that happens in grade 7. That means they've satisfied all the requirements for understanding plot. Excuse me. Let's look at another one. Theme. Now, I'm a high school teacher, and we've talked about theme all the way through senior year. Most have. This has 6 levels. It does not mean that by 6th grade they're done talking about theme. And some of these levels, they may not even achieve level 4 until, who knows, grade 9? Some of these kids, grade 10? And on. And when you look at, level 6, multiple understands relationship among themes in multiple texts and or artistic media. I've recently seen some AP teachers doing this with with 12th grade seniors. Okay, so the idea is that students move through school at different paces and at different times. We currently group them by age. You are 5 years old, you're in kindergarten, and you do what kindergartners do. And when you're 15, you're with all the other 15-year-olds, or 15 and 16, and you are a high school freshman, and you're doing what they do. It doesn't matter if you can't quite master the grade 7 content, or if you're reading at a 12th grade level. Because you're in freshman English, you do what freshmen do. This system changes that. The idea is that students start at an appropriate place and they progress up the scale, demonstrating their proficiency at each way. When they get to the top of the scale, here at level 6, here at level 9, 6, 7, and on, then they're ready to leave. Now, schools may do different things, and I don't think people have figured that out. But here's how you get a high school diploma. It's by hitting these top levels in every standard. Or by having such extensive modifications, you can get to these levels. But this is what the Maine Cohort for customized learning is looking at and what they're putting into practice. It's easy for critics to look at this and say, oh my gosh, like 9th graders won't be doing anything. Or to look at a standard, go to a scoring guide, and say, oh my gosh, does this mean no one gets an A unless they, read some special college textbook? Not at all. But the fundamental idea is that when a student graduates high school, they know the content at these top levels. Ideally, they know even more. Ideally, they're leaving with college credit, or I currently teach in a career and technical education program. For me, hopefully they're leaving with college credit and industry certification. But this becomes the minimum. Now, there are plenty of critics who are saying that, you can't have students moving at all different paces, that this way of doing school has not been vetted by colleges and universities. Long term and even short term for some of these school districts, they won't be having valedictorians or letter grades. They'll be having proficiency marks in all these boxes. That's not how school traditionally looks. It does, however, allow for some interesting things. My daughter last year was in an 8th grade science class and found herself not doing anything for a week. She had straight A's all through school. But they couldn't do anything because they had to wait for kids to catch up. Well, she could have, in this system, moved up a standard and been independently or with help doing something at the next level. But because their whole class was doing one standard at a time, she was prevented from doing that. Likewise, I've seen students who at a grade 9 level have not mastered this or this, but because their class is doing this, that's where they are. So they got, you know, D's or very ultra low C's in these skills when they were taught, if they were taught, but now they're here. The argument is that all students will demonstrate proficiency at every level. So no one gets here and they can't do it because they don't have these fundamental building skills. Other folks have argued that, wait a minute, what if someone is here trying this standard 2 years running? Do they just not get out because they can't measure that? So there's arguments for both sides. But this is what at least one model of proficiency-based education looks like. Now, I'm betting this will draw, hopefully, a lot of questions. So I'm going to encourage that you take a look at these, spend a little time glancing again at the Common Core. You can click the PDF links, and since I haven't clicked one of these in a while, I'm unclear what I'm going to see. But you can see, I believe you can see these standards all lined up. Let me just pull that up really quick and whoops, sorry. I'm trying to find my downloads. So I clicked those standards and it should show up somewhere. Anyway, I think what you will see if you click those standards is essentially all the levels. So here it is. This is the strand for adjectives, and these are all the levels of the content. Understand adjectives describe nouns, to using comparative and superlative adjectives. All right. So there it is. Fire some questions away in this forum. Let's talk about this a little this week. And we sure won't come to big conclusions, but you will get a chance to explore and go from there. All right, I'm signing off. See you in the forums.